Yaps. It's in the name. Zohran Mamdani. This guy could literally be the next mayor of New York. That's right. The guy right above me. Potentially, first Islamic or Muslim mayor for New York. And he wants things like government-owned grocery stores in the city of New York. And this is such a scary thing, guys. And I'm just going to put it and ask you guys simply and let me know down below. What government thing runs more effectively and smoothly than any private business or corporation, even in the matter? Like a government-owned grocery store, it would be a nightmare. In theory, maybe it sounds nice, but when I hear something like that, to me, that's a trap. But I'm going to be very curious to what the CEO of secularism himself has to say about this.
Mamdani, an Indian-origin New Yorker, recently just got one step away from becoming the mayor of the world's most famous city, New York.
Self-proclaimed Democratic Socialist has won the Democratic Party's primary in a high-profile race for the mayor of New York City.
Mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani has won the Democratic primary, setting up a general election race that has already begun.
We have won because New Yorkers have stood up for a city they can afford.
Interestingly, the same people who were mocking Indians that celebrated Vivek Ramaswamy or Kash Patel are now celebrating Mamdani's win. And I think we know why.
जब जोहरान से इंटरव्यू में पूछा गया तो उन्होंने कहा कि मैं गुजरात से हूं और नरेंद्र मोदी की नीतियों के बारे में भी वो काफी आलोचना करते हैं, ठीक इसी तरीके से जैसे डोनाल्ड ट्रंप की नीति की वो आलोचना करते हैं.
I don't know how he feels about the next part though.
तो उनका जीता जाना कुछ इस तरह से है. आप ये सोचिए कि नरेंद्र मोदी के दौर में, डोनाल्ड ट्रंप के दौर में कोई राहुल गांधी या कोई अरविंद केजरीवाल अगर कोई बड़ा चुनाव जीत जाता है
और हरा देता है नरेंद्र मोदी या डोनाल्ड ट्रंप को, तो आप सोचिए कितनी बड़ी बात होगी.
Really? You're comparing him to Rahul Gandhi? Are you trying to celebrate him or roast him? Because he's got to be thinking as well, listen, I can actually win elections on my own. Why am I being compared to this guy? It's like an actress who has won her first Oscar immediately being compared to Khushi Kapoor.
जिन्हें पर्सनल का मतलब नहीं पता है वो और क्या कहेंगे? Excuse me? मेरे फादर बस बुक्स नहीं बेचते, वो बच्चों की सोच को, उनकी पर्सनालिटीज को शेप करते हैं. He actually cares about them.
ये सब क्या देखना पड़ रहा है? अच्छा है मैं अंधा हूँ.
Now, while some people are happy, there are concerns also after his win. New York GOP Representative Elise Stefanik called him a radical, defund the police, communist, raging anti-Semite. Representative Mike Lawler called him a radical, anti-Semitic socialist and warned that he would run New York into the ground. His victory in the Democratic primaries for the position of the mayor of New York has generated a lot of interest.
He just looks like the Indian version of one of my best friends growing up, Aaron Rios. He just looks like the Indian version of him, and I can't shake it.
Not just in the US, but also
so
in
I want
India,
to give the guy the benefit of the doubt. He may be a good guy.
Indian origin. His opinions on India are, let's say, interesting, to say the least. And we will talk about those opinions in detail later in the video. So while liberal Democrats are ecstatic, there's also widespread panic among the MAGA voters as well as certain more centrist voters. So let's talk about Mamdani today. Now look, I have to confess, as soon as Mamdani won, I was just waiting to see what Donald Trump was going to say about him. And he had a lot to say. It's finally happened. The Democrats have crossed the line. Zohran Mamdani, a 100% communist lunatic, has just won the Democratic primary and is on his way to becoming mayor. We've had radical lefties before.
If Donald Trump was Indian, this is 100% what he would sound like.
But this is getting a little ridiculous. He looks terrible, his voice is grating, he's not very smart, he's got AOC +3, dummies all backing him, and even our great Palestinian senator, crying Chuck Schumer, is groveling over him. Yes, this is a big moment in the history of our country, but honestly, I'm a little disappointed.
I've heard a lot of great impressions. There's a lot of good ones out there. Some that just make you go, wow. That was not one of them. No, sir, it was not.
Typical Trump stuff, but let's be honest, it's not as good as it used to be. I remember when he could end people's careers with tweets. I remember when he came up with the nicknames so brutal, you couldn't take those people seriously ever again. You remember Low Energy Jeb? Remember Lion Ted Cruz? Remember Crooked Hillary? Remember even Meatball Ron? These are just...
What about Tampon Tim? Tampon Tim is the best one of them all.
Just classics. Each nickname derailed the respective person's campaign entirely. And he writes this huge post about Mamdani and he couldn't even come up with a good nickname for him. Something like Zohran Mamdami, Jihadi Mamdani. I mean, I know these aren't fantastic, but...
No, if Donald Trump said that, that would be borderline racist. He can't say that. With his name, it would be so hard. It would be so hard to find like a little zinger that Trump likes to do. To throw the word jihad in there, oh, that's... Even for somebody who supports Trump, I'd be like, yo, someone give Grandpa his meds.
But if you have some, please let me know in the comment section so we can help Trump out. Does Trump just not have that sauce anymore? Interestingly, even some Democrats expressed concern. Former New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio and Governor Kathy Hochul questioned whether his views on crime in Israel might alienate moderate voters. But in any case, his win is a big deal because he defeated former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. But also, let's be honest, Cuomo is a disgraced former governor that had to leave his position because of allegations of corruption as well as allegations of sexual impropriety. But it's still...
Wait, are they still just allegations at this point? I think everyone knows. I mean, sure, they're allegations, but...
an impressive feat nevertheless. So let's get to know Zohran a little bit better. Who is Zohran Mamdani? And how the hell did he win the New York mayoral primary? And why has he suddenly become the toast of American progressives as well as Indian leftists? So Mamdani is the son of Indian origin filmmaker Meera Nair and Ugandan-born academic Mahmood Mamdani. He became a US citizen in 2019, but before continuing...
You wouldn't even have to give me his profile, like his dad. His dad looks smart as fuck. His dad looks like an academic.
With Zohran, I want to tell you a little bit something about her mother, because Meera Nair is an internationally acclaimed filmmaker, known for films like Salaam Bombay, Monsoon Wedding, and The Reluctant Fundamentalist. I'm sure you've heard her name before. I'm sure maybe you've heard even the names of her movies before. But if you have, you probably are aware that her films tend to showcase extreme poverty and hardship in India, sometimes labeled as poverty porn, which appeals to Western audiences. Basically, she was selling Indian poverty porn to the West before Slumdog Millionaire came in and stole her thunder. Critics also argue that her works tend to highlight Muslim characters and culture quite sympathetically, while depicting Hindu traditions or Hindu practices in a very negative light. In 2013, she refused an invitation to Israel's Haifa International Film Festival, tweeting that she would only go when the occupation is gone. So,
I'm not gonna lie, if that's what she believes in and that's what she wants to put out there, so be it. I got no issues with that.
This is the tree, and we'll see how far the apple has fallen from it. Zohran grew up in an upper middle class life in New York and studied at top institutions and then joined the Democratic Socialists of America. Again, we shouldn't take anything away from his campaign because his campaign mobilized more than 21,000 volunteers across New York City. Outreach was conducted in over a dozen languages. This was door-to-door canvassing, community meetings, street events, and flyers. His alliance with New York City Comptroller Brad Lander in the ranked choice system was a tactical masterstroke because it ensured that the anti-Cuomo vote wasn't divided, because even though Cuomo was sort of the establishment candidate, there was a lot of anti-Cuomo feeling in New York because of the allegations against him and his resignation in disgrace. Financially, Mamdani maxed out New York City's $8 million fundraising cap purely through small dollar donors. A feature of his campaign has been the truly Gen Z style of his campaign.
My team says I move my hands too much in these videos. I get it, I do. Keep them in your pocket.
He's collaborated with comedians like Stavros Halkias and politicians like AOC, even though some people argue that she is also a famous comedian. He's known for his TikTok and Instagram style ads that have gained a lot of popularity and have been the backbone of his campaign. Ads like this.
To Mr. Cuomo, I have never had to resign in disgrace. I have never cut Medicaid. I have never stolen hundreds of millions of dollars from the MTA. I have never hounded the 13 women who credibly accused me of sexual harassment. I have never sued for their gynecological records, and I have never done those things because I am not you, Mr. Cuomo. And furthermore, the name is Mamdani. M-A-M-D-A-N-I. You should learn how to say it.
And ads like this.
I'm not gonna lie, that shit was cringe as fuck.
पर आपको एक सवाल पूछना चाहता हूँ। तुमने कभी किसी को वोट किया?
Cool. Now, after his win, the right wing within the MAGA coalition was really mad because Zohran Mamdani,
Isn't it crazy? Hold on. Just let's take a step back, whether you think those are cringe or not, right? It is crazy that this is how politicians are maneuvering through the space now. They understand that, like, hey, if you want to be in politics, it's about attention, and attention is very fast grabbing. You have to be on social media. You have to be on these trends, and if anything, you have to kind of be the one leading the trends. Insane.
Muslim Democratic Socialists just won the primary in New York City's mayoral race. And as you can see, most of these are just ad hominem attacks. I genuinely think this is where the right wing of MAGA has gone horribly wrong, and it has horrendously overestimated the mandate that they received from the public in 2024. They've mistaken their mandate to be one of complete cultural victory over the so-called left. They see the 2024 win as a vindication of their xenophobia. And I think that these ad hominem attacks will not curry a lot of favor with the general American population, who find this sort of behavior quite repulsive. Which is why I think because of MAGA's overreach, we might see the pendulum shift completely the other way and embolden the far left. And we might get a lot more Zohran Mamdanis throughout the USA. So rather than ad hominem attacks, just based on his identity, you have to...
He's not wrong in this. Our CEO is not wrong in this.
to acknowledge that he has been successful. And then you have to study why he has been successful rather than creating a straw man of Muslim, therefore disqualified. This is the same mistake that left-wing politicians and their supporters make in India all the time. Rather than study...
Not even just in... This is the same mistake that right-wing people do against the left all the time as well. Politicians is not sophisticated. It's not even they're trying to, like... It's just these, like, simple words of he's a Nazi or he's a racist or... He's just Islam, so we have to throw him down completely. Like, you can't do that. You have to listen to what they have to say and then give better points, better validations to move your point forward.
Modi and trying to understand Modi and why he wins. They will blame all of his victories and all
American
of their
may not
defeats
be that
on
smart,
Hindu extremism, which is why they continue to lose and which is why they have lost 3 elections in a row to this man. So I think it's unfair to attack Zohran Mamdani based on who he is, but we should examine what he believes and what his plans for New York City are. So let's look at those because there's got to be a reason why he's so popular.
Free, free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
Now we know where this chant came from.
I am in favor of defunding the police.
Well, I'm not in favor of defunding the police.
Oh, it says here, Zohran Mamdani thinks that the NYPD should be removed specifically from high crime areas. And as mayor, he'd replace cops with social workers.
When people make mistakes, the answer is not to throw them in jail.
No.
The answer is not to, put them in a cage and throw away the key. The answer is to try and find a non-carceral solution.
Absolutely.
Community service, something where, they learn from their mistakes. There's a sense of accountability and growth, all these kinds of things, which for many people in this country, especially black people, are not offered the same opportunity.
All right, listen.
I hear what he's saying. Right? And I'm not saying that he's inherently wrong, but I also think that's a little naive. And I think he knows that that's a little naive, and he is playing simply on the emotional path on this. And when people do cross a line, and people will cross a line, you have to be willing to put them in a box and throw away the key for the betterment of the society as a whole. It's harsh, but if you want to be a leader, that's what you have to do.
Everybody makes mistakes. Maybe this was said a few years ago. I mean, who here has not put their foot in their mouths, right? What else has he said?
Sat Sri Akal ji, my name is Zohran Kwame Mamdani.
Okay. Now I see why some people in India love him so much. And I think I found another reason.
Modi is holding a rally in Madison Square Garden. He wants to hold a joint press conference with you afterwards, reaffirming the strong bond between India and New York. Do you agree to the event?
No.
All right, Mr. Stringer?
No.
And Mr. Mamdani?
No.
Oh, and he also said this.
I just want to say something here, which is that my father, his family comes from Gujarat in India, and his family is Muslim, I'm Muslim. And Narendra Modi helped to orchestrate what was a mass slaughter of Muslims in Gujarat to the extent that we don't even believe there are Gujarati Muslims anymore. And when I tell someone that I am, it's a shock to them that is even the case. And this is someone who we should view in the same manner that we do Benjamin Netanyahu. This is a war criminal.
Did he just say that there are no Gujarati Muslims? Okay, I'm starting to get a better picture of Mamdani here. Because for people that might not be aware of the demographics of Gujarat, let me paint you a picture here. The population of Muslims in Gujarat is 5.8 million. The population of Muslims in USA is 3.45 millions, which means that there are more Muslims in Gujarat than the entire United States. Oh yeah. This is Meera Nair's son, all right. So you're very prominently using your Indian identity for aesthetics, for cringe ad campaigns featuring Bollywood song and dance, and you're using your Indian identity as a minority box to tick to bolster your intersectional bona fides.
It's hard because to say that he's using that because he is that. You know what I mean? Like, he is an Indian American. His parents are Indian, well known in India. Hard to say that.
You're out there proudly claiming that you're a Gujarati Muslim. You're supposed to be an expert on this issue, man. And you don't even know that there are nearly 6 million Muslims living in Gujarat. That's insane. It's like if you market yourself your entire life as a football expert, and then you think that a handball is called when you grab the referee's testicles. He also called Modi, like I said, a war criminal and compared him to Netanyahu. But again, if he was an expert, a proud Gujarati like he claims, he would have known that in 2012, the Indian Supreme Court appointed special investigative team found no evidence against Narendra Modi of any wrongdoing in the 2002 Gujarat riots. The special investigative team was headed by former CBI chief R.K. Raghavan, supervised directly by the Supreme Court. In fact, the Supreme Court also acknowledged that the chief minister, Modi, took all steps to quell the violence as quickly as possible. In fact,
I'm not saying that I'm on Mandoni's side. I'm just saying that he said that Modi helped orchestrate these things. He probably did help orchestrate these things in the sense that he's trying to help navigate a way for it to quell down and to die down, but he was still affiliated with that conflict, and he's taking it personal.
He was hamstrung mainly by the inaction of politicians of other states who declined to help him simply because he was from the opposition party.
मध्य प्रदेश की सरकार को, महाराष्ट्र की सरकार को, राजस्थान की सरकार को तुरंत फैक्स चिट्ठी भेजी कि मुझे तत्काल पुलिस की मदद चाहिए, आपका पुलिस फोर्स मेरे यहाँ भेजिए। तीनों कांग्रेस रूल स्टेट, और इन्होंने मना कर दिया।
This is the India expert. This is your proud Gujarati. If this is a Gujarat expert, then Rahul Gandhi is an expert on Gandhiism.
So my question really is about actually a kind of Gandhian question about violence and how to live with it. And in your case, it's also personal. And so could you sort of say a little bit on your own personal resilience on it, but also how you envision the compact between violence and non-violence in Indian society?
I mean, the word that comes to mind is forgiveness, right? Mm-hmm. It's not precisely the most accurate. It's you realize.
I mean, that video is just beautiful. It keeps getting more and more embarrassing and painful to watch with each passing second. It's like a slow-moving car crash.
That was
a piece of art. Back to Mamdani. In 2020, Mamdani targeted Indian-American politicians, tweeting that Queen's Assemblywoman Jennifer Rajkumar should return the money she's taken from Hindu fascists. He also called for former Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney to renounce her association with Modi and condemn the atrocities that he's perpetrated. He's also spoken at rallies opposing the Ram Mandir construction in Ayodhya, calling the temple Hindu fascism instead of what it really was, a result of a century-long campaign to right a very old wrong. He has also attended rallies where slogans like Hindus are bastards were chanted, which he never condemned. In May 2024, he wrote that his family was expelled from Uganda because they were Indians. Today, my brothers and sisters in India are persecuted because they're Muslim. Meanwhile, let's look at this Muslim persecution. The share of Muslim population has risen from 9.8% in 1951 to 14.2% in 2011, with a 43% population growth from 1950 to 2015. Their economic conditions has improved as well. Rural Muslim poverty fell from 31.7% to 2.4%, and urban from 39.4% to 5.7% since 2011-2012. And most of this time, the Modi government has been in power. The Modi government has also launched schemes directly aimed towards the Muslim community, like Nai Manzil, Padho Pradesh, Sikho Aur Kamao, and allocated 15% funds under the Minority Welfare Scheme. 5 crore scholarships for Muslim women has been launched by the Modi government. And there was a Pew survey that was done in India recently that found that more than 85% Muslims feel proud to be Indian and feel free to practice their faith. I hope you can now understand why some people in India have a problem with this guy, especially when his comments are so completely off the mark. He's either incredibly uneducated on the topic or is outright lying, and I don't know which is worse. He acts like an expert while being completely wrong on everything he says about India. This is like if Pakistanis were making war movies when they've never won a war in their entire history. Oh, wait a second. But they have made a movie like that.
Are you ready? Yes, sir!
Hey, don't laugh. This is a serious war movie.
Stop it.
They actually believe this stuff. Please take this seriously. And it's not just Indians that are upset. Sadly, Zohran seems to be a very typical Indian American. He uses his Indianness for aesthetics purposes and for minority box checking purposes, while he despises everything Indian. Because, like it or not, everything Indian arises from Hindu roots. And it's not just Indians that have a problem with him. Sure. Mamdani has openly supported the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement aimed at Israel. He has refused to denounce chants like globalize the Intifada. When asked about phrases like globalize the Intifada and from the river to the sea on the Bulwark podcast, Mamdani declined to condemn them, stating, I know people for whom those things mean very different things. To me, what I hear from so many is a desperate desire for equality and equal rights in standing up for Palestinian human rights. Okay, but from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free means turning the entire region from the River Jordan to the Red Sea into Palestine, which means that there basically will be no more Israel, which is basically the stated goal of the terrorist organization known as Hamas and the Islamic regime in Iran. So even if some people believe the phrase to be simply about human rights and inequality, you cannot ignore the literal meaning of the phrase and how it is openly associated with the goals of terrorist organizations. You can't go to a movie theater, shout that you want to shoot everyone in that theater, and then when you get arrested, you say, I was just hyped after watching the latest John Wick movie. He defended his position again by arguing that the word intifada has been used by the Holocaust Museum when translating the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising into Arabic, claiming it simply means struggle. But then he got immediately fact-checked by the same Holocaust Museum. They said, exploiting the museum and the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising to sanitize, globalize the Intifada is outrageous and especially offensive to survivors.
And I'm sympathetic to that viewpoint.
Since 1987, Jews have been attacked and murdered under its banner. This is why some Jewish New Yorkers and Jewish politicians are nervous about his rise to prominence. Because after October 7th, there has been a sharp rise in anti-Semitism, both on the left and on the right. And now there's a potential New York mayor who refuses to criticize from the river to the sea chants. So that's his political policies. There is also the small case of his economic policies. In response to Mamdani's win, the stock market has already shown negative reactions, with real estate stocks falling sharply. SL Green Realty dropped over 6% and Vornado Realty Trust fell nearly 7%. And one of the primary reasons for that is Mamdani's flagship policy, which is his rent freeze policy, where he wants to freeze the rent in order to make housing more affordable for New Yorkers. But critics argue that Mamdani's proposed rent freeze on over 1 million rent-stabilized apartments could distort the housing market and discourage new construction. Economic experts point out that rent control historically exacerbates housing shortages rather than solving them.
Correct.
This concept was actually explained really well by a YouTube channel called Common Sense Soapbox.
According to a 2024 Urban Institute study across 27 metro areas, rent control is associated with a reduction in the total number of rental units available.
And here's the most important thing that rent freezing does not address.
Rent control does help some low-income people keep their place, but it also prevents other low-income people from getting one by failing to address the root cause of high rents.
I think they sound
limited
nice,
housing
but
supply.
His other big flagship policy is city-owned grocery stores.
It's also that we're going to provide $65 million of funding for general care.
We have won because New Yorkers have stood up for a city they can afford. A city where they can do more than just struggle.
The proposal to create government-operated grocery stores to make food more affordable for New Yorkers. The fundamental challenge facing state-owned grocery stores stems from what Austrian economists call the economic calculation problem. Without genuine market prices for inputs and outputs, state enterprises cannot efficiently allocate resources or determine what goods consumers actually want. State-owned stores would struggle to determine optimal inventory levels, product mix, and pricing strategies without the price signals that emerge from competitive markets. Private grocery stores rely on sophisticated supply chain management and real-time sales data to minimize waste and maximize consumer satisfaction, functions that become severely hampered when political rather than economic considerations drive decision-making. As research on state-owned enterprises demonstrates, government-run businesses are notoriously known for bureaucratic constraints, lack of investment incentives, pricing controls, centralized decision-making, and restrictions on hiring and firing workers. These constraints make it extremely difficult for state-owned grocery stores to respond quickly to changing consumer preferences or market conditions. Public choice theory, pioneered by economists like James Buchanan and Gordon Tullock, provide crucial insights into why state-owned grocery stores would likely fail. Politicians and bureaucrats operating state grocery stores would face incentives very different from those of private business owners. Rather than maximizing consumer satisfaction and minimizing costs, they would be motivated by political considerations, job security, and bureaucratic empire building. There's also the problem of corruption. In the grocery context, this would manifest through corrupt procurement practices where suppliers gain contracts through political connections rather than competitive bidding. Store locations might be chosen based on political considerations rather than where they would best serve consumers. Hiring and promotional decisions would become vehicles for political patronage rather than merit-based advancements. We need to hire more Muslims. We need to hire more minorities. And there are prominent historical examples of state-owned grocery stores failing. The Soviet Union is the most widely cited example. Under the Soviet system, grocery stores and food distribution were entirely state-run. Chronic shortages, poor quality goods, rationing, and long lines became the norm. There's also the example of Chile. Chile's experience during the Popular Unity government offers a more recent example. The government established the Price and Supply Committees, which were a state-backed network of collectively managed stores and ad hoc food distribution sites. Now, this resulted in severe inefficiencies and inability to meet consumer demand. Rampant shortages and the emergence of a black market, it also led to growing public dissatisfaction, which contributed to social unrest and political instability. And this food distribution crisis was a major factor undermining the support for Allende's government and played a role in the military coup that ended his presidency. There's also the case of Venezuela. Inspired by socialist policies, Venezuela created a state-run supermarket chain led by the Ministry of Popular Power for Agriculture. This initiative, launched as a flagship policy under Hugo Chavez, ended up failing within 8 years. The stores suffered from the same issues seen in other state-run enterprises: inefficiencies,
boom,
shortages, and an inability to compete with private sector alternatives. Producers were unable to cover costs, causing them to stop producing food. It led to a collapse in domestic food production and increasing dependence on imports. It led to widespread smuggling and a booming black market for food as people turned to illegal means to survive. It led to food riots, looting, and social unrest, with hundreds arrested during food-related protests. It led to corruption and mismanagement, including massive quantities of food rotting in warehouses while people went hungry. In fact, there are also examples in America. While not at the national level, the city-owned Erie Market in Erie, Kansas provides a recent American example. Taken over by the city in 2021, the store has lost money almost every month, struggling to compete with nearby private competitors like Walmart and Dollar General. The store posted only one profitable month in 2022 and lost $132,000 over the year, highlighting the challenge even at a small scale. Meanwhile, this is what private stores are getting you.
Grocery stores are a modern miracle that we take for granted. Here's why. It's the middle of winter here in DC. How come there are still grapes in my grocery store? The growing season is over, right? The answer is that the ones here in my local store come from South America. For example, they might come from Chile, where they're harvested, packed on pallets, and kept in cold storage. They're then put on shipping containers, where they take an 8,000-mile trip to a port like Wilmington, Delaware. Cold. From there, they're unloaded, fumigated, put in cold storage again, then trucked over to a distribution center, from which they make their final trip to your local grocery store. Grapes aren't growing, but the livelihoods of thousands of people around the world depend on getting grapes here. When governments try to restrict where food comes from or how much of it can be sent to stores, it leads to barer shelves and fewer options for people like you and me.
So I think two things can exist at the same time. I think we can acknowledge that Mamdani ran a very successful grassroots campaign, and his win in New York is genuinely impressive, which means that he was able to strike a strong note with the hopes and aspirations of the people of New York. On the other hand, we can also see clear as day the very serious problems Mayor Mamdani might bring, particularly to Hindus and Jews. There are people in India that are not happy with this victory, but I would urge them to use their words carefully when it comes to criticizing him. Please don't fall into the same trap as the right-wing MAGA racists. Just screaming that this guy is a Muslim and thus he should be disqualified is just not going to cut it with a liberal American voter. There's a fundamental difference between an American city liberal and an average.
Obviously, the state-owned grocery stores, no good. Rent freeze sounds good for the people who are struggling, but for the the people who are actually the backbone of the city, of the tenants and whatnot, terrible idea, right? All of the things that I'm hearing are definitely like this social communist viewpoint, and it's once more something I just don't subscribe to.
Indian. People need to understand something. The experience of India with Islam is very different from the experience of New York liberals with Islam. In India, the Islamic invasion was devastating and created generational trauma that millions of people remember to this day. In India, there are prominent political leaders as well as a large section of Muslim society that looks fondly upon the Islamic invasion of India and the major Islamic rulers who murdered and converted innocent people. In fact, this attitude led to the partition, where a nearly 10,000-year-old continuous civilization and landmass was split into two parts. There are still areas in India with significant Muslim populations like Kashmir, West Bengal and Kerala, which are showing separatist and Islamic supremacist tendencies. Therefore, the Hindu or Indian understanding of Islam and Muslims is to an extent shaped by all of these painful experiences, not just in the past, but painful realities in certain parts of India today, like Jammu and Kashmir. This doesn't mean that they automatically hate all Muslims, but these extremely painful realities have shaped their perception of Muslims in Islam. But American city liberals have not had that experience. Their leaders tell them a completely different story. Prominent leftist scholars like Noam Chomsky and Judith Butler have allegedly expressed support for terrorist organizations like Hamas and Hezbollah and have described them as part of the international and progressive left. Ghaffar Hussain, in his piece titled An Unlikely Alliance for The Guardian, said, "The old rule that the enemy of my enemy is my friend seems to be shaping the relationship between the left and the Islamists all around the West. By having a common foe in Western capitalism, which they conveniently blame for all of the world's ills, they have developed a marriage of convenience against the odds. If you remove the Islamic imagery from Islamist extremism, you'll find a world outlook based on a Marxist worldview, a power struggle between the exploiters and the exploited that demands a revolution to set things straight and is fueled by resentment and indignity. It sees right and wrong as a binary. It is a viewpoint which boils everything down to power dynamics. These are oppressors and the oppressed, colonizers and the colonized, good and evil. It is a totalitarian way of thinking. All human relationships are seen through power dynamics and cannot be examined through any other lens. In other words, the boxed-in way both groups see the world is the same. Their causes are just vessels to carry their revolutionary ideology. This is exactly how students are taught to think at elite American institutions today, where these liberals hone their cognitive skills. Critiques of different topics such as race relations, healthcare, gender, and the climate are all subsumed into this ideology. People need to understand this about city liberals in America. In this view, Israel and the Jews become the hostis humani generis, or the enemies of mankind. Indians who study in these universities and live in these cities view and portray India and India's pro-Hindu government to their Western friends in the same exact way, even though the Indian government has never done anything even remotely close to what Israel has done in Gaza. There are, of course, irreconcilable differences between the Islamists and the leftists. For one, the leftists are mainly atheistic, while Islamists are openly religious. Though some leftists have sympathy for the Islamist causes, most Islamists are disgusted by their rainbow flag-waving ideological counterparts. But that does not change their shared ideological roots. Most liberal New Yorkers, therefore, do not see the dangers of Islamism and communism because, frankly, they have never experienced either. There's a Russian saying, everything changes but nothing disappears. The Marxist Islamist understanding of the world didn't go anywhere. It just became more sophisticated and is now expressing itself through people like AOC and Zohran Mamdani. And therefore, when Indians make their arguments against Mamdani and their grievances, which are genuine, as hopefully shown in this video, Indians also need to be relatively sophisticated in expressing these opinions. I hope I've done a decent job maybe of explaining the grievances that Indians have against Zohran and why they feel nervous if somebody like that becomes the mayor of one of the most cosmopolitan and famous cities in the whole world. But I want to ask you, do you think I'm completely off base? What do you think about Mamdani? What do you think about Mamdani's campaign? What do you think about the prospect of Mamdani becoming the mayor of New York City? Let me know your thoughts and comments in the comment section down below.
I think it's scary, but I could definitely understand that, like, the left right now is, and this is just me speaking super broadly, right? Like, the right is in the form of MAGA and Donald Trump. The left doesn't really have anybody that can, like, wave their flag and be their banner, and they need to find somebody. I hope it doesn't take form of somebody like this, because I said in my other video, this is a young guy who's articulate and can respond super well, kind of like an Obama-esque type level. He's a minority. He could play on that. That's dangerous, because I think coming in here and putting socialist and Marxist, things into play, I just don't think it's going to be a good thing, because even though we have never experienced it in America, it's been experienced around the globe, and it never, ever works out. In theory, it sounds real nice, but you put it into practice, and human nature always going to reign supreme, and in things like that, people are going to find how to exploit the system, and they're going to be the exploited, and ultimately the exploiters are going to dominate. But maybe I said that backwards, maybe not. Let me know what you guys think of all of this down below.